Okay, we're gonna get started. Talk slowly. Okay, welcome everyone. We're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm going to do first agenda item. Roll call, call to order. Excuse me. And take roll. Okay. Vice Chair Mike Neely.
Here.
Member Tim May. Member Janice Brokaw.
Present.
Member Sarah Glade Garney.
Here.
Member Charlene Lux. Member Jenny Meeker. Here. Member Linda Clapp. Here. Member Sherry Oster. And I forgot, I am here too. Let the record reflect the who are here and who is not here is Tim May, Charlene Lutz. Okay. Moving to agenda item number 2. Are there any announcements? Okay, is there anyone, I forgot to ask, is there anyone on Zoom today?
So there are two members of the public in attendance. One is a commissioner and one is so you will want to ask for public comment.
Okay. Okay, and so since there are no announcements, we're going to move to agenda item number 3, public appearances. Members of the public who wish to address the committee regarding matters not on the agenda should request recognition at this time. Is there any present or on Zoom?
So if you would like to speak, please raise your hand via Zoom. Here, this member of the public would like to speak.
Okay,
Right. Right, it allows you comments. Dave, you can sit here. Chris. The person is muted, so like, the person does not want to speak.
okay. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 4, discussion. And we're gonna start with Deborah Doyle, Commissioner Deborah Doyle with item 4.1.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here. Just briefly, the commission has voted since you last met to move forward with a renewal of the Measure Y. And so it's going to be on the November ballot and it's going to be called Measure W. And in addition, there's a separate campaign committee that's forming. So if any of you are interested in talking about that, we can certainly talk about that after the meeting. Also, the commission is considering the Roseland project. We'll be talking about that on Wednesday. And we've of course approved the budget for next year since I believe we met. And that's about it. There are lots of other things, but I think those are the major points of interest for this committee. Any questions?
I have one, if I may.
Let's go.
Through the chair.
Yes.
You said discussing the Roseland project. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like,
Sure, as you know, and Erica can leap in, but as you know, for many, many years, the library has wanted to have the Roseland community have a library of their own. There's been a temporary library, and so we've been working for the last few years since Santa Rosa acquired Roseland, incorporated Roseland with Santa Rosa,
Right.
and they gave us a they appropriated a large amount from their PG&E settlement for the Roseland Library. And so our foundation has been, the Library Foundation, separate 501(c)(3), of course,
Right.
has been trying to raise a lot of money. And so we're moving closer to the point where we have to sign a contract with the city about size and that sort of thing. So that's what we're discussing. We'd like to have a huge library and realistically, money is probably not going to allow us to do that, but.
Yes, the MOU, the agreement is really the roles and responsibilities of the city and the library. It discusses how funds will be transferred from the foundation to the city. There's also a grant that the county holds the funds for, and so that grant requires reimbursed expenses. So it just kind of talks about the funds and the roles of each partner. And it's not up for a vote at the September meeting, it's up for review and discussion. And then October will likely be when the commission votes to approve the agreement.
And in addition, not about Roseland, but the Petaluma Library is close to renovation. And so there's a mini library on the site, and the Healdsburg Library is closed for some renovation. And there's a mini library that's going to open shortly. And then the Windsor Library is closing because we get new carpet. And that will be closed for a little bit. That's happening in November. So we're all very excited. And a lot of these things have been in the works for a very, very long time. So just is good fortune or misfortune that it's all up in the same.
Just, there's no planning there.
That's right. But it will give people who are probably going to vote for things a sense that things are happening. So that's good.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Okay. We will be moving on to item 4.2, if she's ready. Which will be fiscal year 2023-2024 year-end financial report.
Good evening. Good evening. It's been a long day. Nice to see you all. So today we have the year-end report. It's unaudited. We're currently pulling together our financial for auditing purposes. And so what we have before you are the year-end reports unaudited. So in the for auditing purposes, we will see some adjustments. Then you'll see those. You can see those in the final audit. But what we have today is the most updated financial information. This report was presented to the Finance Committee on August 19, and I know that the Measure Y Oversight Committee, narrows down on the sales tax revenues and expenditures, but it's, from my perspective, it's very good for you all as community members to know the full picture. And our major revenues are property tax and sales tax. Having said that, I'll jump into the report that shows that our combined revenues with property tax and sales came in at $44.74 million. And that's barely making our target just $15,000 over our revenue target. There's a few reasons for that, and I'll go into the detail. Property tax receipts were $27 million, which is almost $400,000 over our target. That's good news. On the sales tax side, sales tax revenue was $15.4 million, which is there is a shortfall compared to the budget. Couple of things that are happening here is that about the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, it was clear that revenues were that even though there was some shortfalls, let's say February, we were not gonna make up a shortfall in the following months, towards the end of the fiscal year. And so I did identify, there would be a shortfall in, sales tax. And, in addition to that, when we are, closing the financial system for the year, we need to make, estimated receipts for the May and June because of the 2 month time lag. So our system closes in before we receive our July receipt, which is really in May. And then we receive the final August receipts, June receipts in August. So therefore we book a, what we call a receivable for those last 2 months. And at that point, as you can see in the summary report, the shortfall for, under sales tax is, estimated at $1 million. However, I would like to note that here we are on August 29th. I do know the actuals that came in July and August. They're better than our estimates, but not enough to recover from a shortfall. So our shortfall right now, given the 2 receipts, are approximately $888,000. And this variance between the estimates that were booked and the actuals would then require a budget audit adjustment to ensure that we are reporting the actual for revenue. Other revenue includes receipts that is a combination of interest earned, intergovernmental sources, grants, and donations, which was a total of $2.3 million. And that is over our target by over almost $650,000. And what was driving that is the interest earned on our cash balances. So that's good news. So this actually helped close that gap of 800, offset the gap in sales tax for fiscal year 24. So that's good news. And why did we experience a shortfall in sales tax is really external factors. During the years of 2021 and 22, inflation was really high. And what does inflation mean? That prices are high. And sales tax is a tax on prices that, as consumers, we pay. So the higher the prices are, the higher the much more we're paying in sales tax. And so at that time where inflation was at 7% and 8% year over year, our sales tax came in higher. And but with federal monetary policy where interest rates have increased in order to slow down all of that spending, well, guess what? Spending is down, so our people are not spending, they're not paying the sales tax, and we see a slowdown in sales tax revenue for the library. So sales tax is very sensitive to external factors such as I mentioned. And it's not new for the library. During the onset of the COVID pandemic, we saw the same thing. So this is going to be the reality for the library, is that to be very cognizant that the sales tax reflects what's going on in our economy. So that's the revenue side. On the expenditure side, total expenditures were $44.2 million, which is $4.5 million under budget. Most of this is coming from, savings under salaries and benefits, and also mainly our capital. Here, total expenditures, under sales tax was 18.1 million, and property tax was 26.1 million. Salaries and benefits combined 27.8 million with, like I said, a savings of $800,000. That is driven by attrition and vacancies, and also a conservative estimate of benefits. When we developed the budget, CalPERS hasn't published any, what the costs are going to be for the next fiscal year. So in order to avoid any shortfalls in our benefits, I do use a conservative projection. The other items, again, under capital, total capital expenditures were 2.7 million, and sales tax, which we allocate 90% of capital expenditures to sales tax, was $2.4 million, and 10% of capital expenditures are applied to property tax for $273,000. I listed a few projects here that were completed last year, and so there's a lot of new things if you drive around the different branches, you know, like kiosks and book lockers. So those are all nice things to see. The reason why we were underspending in capital, as you know, is the delays in Petaluma and the Hillsburg modernization. That's where our bigger spending items are. And I have a couple of charts that I would like to share with you. The first one is, where does our money go? I like to show this when I develop the budget and I present it to the budget workshop for the commission and the public. But this is a snapshot afterwards, you know, what actually happened. And out of our operating expenditures, which are $41.3 million, 87% of that goes to the branches and the services that support the branches. That includes facilities. For example, when there's a clogged toilet, Dave's team goes out and fixes that. When there's issues with the HVAC, you name it, any new furniture that needs to be moved, from small little things to large things as the modernization projects, facility steps in. You know, Dave's team in terms of marketing, all of the announcements for even just opening up, closing a branch and opening up for the modernization project, to a lot of information for our patrons, as well as collections. So collections management, right? That's what we are, libraries. So the collections is a support division that manages all of our collections, hard books and digital, etc., and delivery of all those collections from one branch to the next. All of those services are required to keep our branches opening and providing the best service that we can to our patrons. Administration is 13% of the $41.3 million. And that includes executive services, which is, you know, the library director. It includes budget and accounting, HR, those items that, you know, are very important to operations as well. And the next chart shows the total. This does include capital. And sales tax, like I said, was rounded up $18.1 million, or 41% of our expenditures. And property tax is $26.1 million, or 59% of our expenditures. So again, Measure Y is significant, it is critical, to what, you know, what patrons what services patrons are receiving today. We can attribute over 40% of our expenditures to Measure Y. So, the work that you all are doing is very, very important. Here, next is the cash balances. Again, as I mentioned, our cash balances for sales tax was $19.7 million. And regarding the fund balance is one of the last financial statements that are prepared is the statement of special activity that includes the fund balance activity. And we're currently updating our projects so that we understand where they close and how they impact fiscal year 25. So that statement will be ready in September and will be presented to will be ready in September for the beginning of the auditor's review. So what's important of all of this is financial impact, is that because there is a shortfall in fiscal year 24, there is an impact to fiscal year 25. Yes, when the budget for fiscal year 25 was adopted in February, March of this year, I worked with the best information that was available at that time in terms of what we could expect a sales tax to come in for fiscal year 25. And it also assumed that we would meet the target for fiscal year 24. And as you can see now, the shortfall, we could say is $888,000 plus. So I have to revise those revenue targets for fiscal year 25, given the latest information, which the last August receipt that came in was on Tuesday of this week. So this is new information that the agenda was published on Monday and I didn't get the news on our sales tax until Tuesday. So I'm giving you fresh information on that. So stay tuned. The Finance Committee meets on September 13th. I think it's at 1 o'clock. And you can participate via Zoom or in person. It will be in Warner Park, our admin office there. And we have a lot to talk about. So that is the report. I also wanted to show you the chart here. The table attachment. The pie chart is reflecting this chart. This chart here gives you the detail of how sales tax was spent under capital. So we have a policy in place of allocation of major revenue sources, and that we follow that policy, and this is the result of the implementation of the policy. So as you can see, service-oriented divisions, which are our branches, our public services, it includes community engagement, facilities, IT, collection, marketing to support the branches, and under sales tax, it was $17.5 million. And what's important here too is that one of the Measure Y purposes was to increase hours for the library, including opening on Sundays. So fiscal year 24 allocated 100% of those positions that we hired in order to open on Sundays was picked up by sales tax. And then under administration, we could see that sales tax picked up $500,000 $520,393. And again, these were the executive, budget and finance, human resources and executive services. The bulk of those administration costs are picked up by the property tax. So that's the summary of this report. I'll take any questions.
Expect the audit to be finished.
The audit should go to the finance committee in November and to the commission in December.
I have a couple questions. Thank you for your explanation. It really helps me because when I read this by myself, I come up with questions. And you've taken care of a number of them here in person. But a few things are lingering. Just things that, so on the second page of your report, you mentioned that we have expenditures 4.5 million under budget and a savings of 812,000. So I'm reading this kind of like a voter who's being asked to continue the sales tax. That's an extra $5.3 million. I mean, with a $1 million shortfall, which you've mentioned, some of which has been recovered. So I'm looking at somewhere between $4 and $5 million of difference in the budgets to actuals here, and I'm just wondering, where does it go? I mean, how is that accounted for, and when are the decisions made for that extra money to go somewhere?
I love your question. Thank you for asking
Thank
that
you.
question.
And I love those big sheets. Where do you get those big sheets?
I'm printing them up, but they give it to me.
Oh,
So if we go to the summary,
Can't get it.
oh, I can't get that printed on my
No.
computer, so I don't have it. Look at those. Okay, I'll get my binoculars.
so if you, so the summary sheet, it shows, as you can see, if you go all the way to the bottom of that, it shows total expenditures, $44.1 million. That includes operating expenditures plus the capital. And, so because we were underspent, by $4.4 million, what is that $4.4 million made up of? It is, we underspent in, I'll start from the top, $800,000 in salaries and benefits.
Right.
That includes vacancies, attrition, the time that it takes between someone quitting or retiring and then filling the position. And services and supplies. Under services and supplies, we saved $743,000. And then, and those are operating, meaning that the revenue that comes in up above, right, of $44.7 million covers the operating expenses through your services and supplies. The following number, which is capital expenditures, that is funded by our fund balance. So as you know, from prior, in the budget, we have about a $7 million fund balance under sales tax. That fund balance is paying for these modernization projects. That's because given our fund balance policy. So really the impact to the operating budget is the savings under salaries and benefits and services and supplies. Where does that money go? Well, when these savings revert back to the fund balance. Why? Because we made our revenue target, we're $15,000, you know, basically we met the revenue target barely. And because of that, we have a balanced budget, and these savings that what I just spoke to revert back to the fund balance.
And we use it for future projects.
Yeah, for future.
And then we can allocate those to future modernization,
Okay, we meaning the commission,
the commission.
right? Okay. All right, and thank you. May I ask another one?
Yeah,
All right, thanks. Well, I'm just thinking as a side note, that would be a helpful explanation to the public in the voter materials. You know, in the pie charts that you offered, where the blue one is about service-oriented divisions, 87%. I just want to continue to make this point. I think for the public, it's very helpful to break that information down so it indicates like branch by branch. And I'm not sure exactly what is the most helpful information, for instance, for a voter. So it may be by per capita, except that like our branch city is a small area, but the service area is huge. Maybe it's by circulation. I mean, I don't know. Library people would know more than me about how to do that, but I think the public, or at least the Sebastopol area public, would really like to know how much do we get as opposed to somebody else, given our small size and our tremendous circulation. So I don't know how you can break that down, but I'd just like to say, I think that would be helpful. There's a way that you could do it.
For a library system that's countywide, many things need to be accounted for system-wide. So it is not only efficient to do that, it makes sense since we serve nation, system-wide. It's like the county. The county, I don't know if they say to every supervisor how much they spent in every district. That is extremely difficult. We're in the same boat.
I would imagine each district knows exactly how much of the road money they got. for potholes.
No.
I'm pretty sure of that, but anyway.
I've worked for counties and cities and that's very difficult to do. And it is a question that comes up once in a while. But in reality, the governing board works for the whole so at this time, this library has not historically, been able to track funding by branch because there is so much that is not allocated that way. So for example, how do you allocate Dave's time or my time or anyone else's time by branch? There's just so much that is not able to be allocated.
Yeah, and even our collection, 61% of our collection budget is digital. So it's really, it moves around, and we also have people from outside our library system who also access our digital collection. So it's hard to calculate that.
We do report expenditures per capita through to the state, and that is something that is useful, and it's great information to have. So and people do go from one branch to another all the time, Yeah.
Right now, they're all coming to Roder Park.
It feels that way.
It's up in Windsor.
With all the mini libraries.
I know, we have been slammed.
Okay. One last question. If I
Go ahead,
may.
it's a good problem to have.
So I'm on page 7 of 23. We're talking about cash balances. You may have already answered this one. We have a property tax general fund cash balance and a sales tax cash balance. I added them up. We've got $41 million. Do we know how much is earmarked for something, whatever, and how much is going to be reserved and how much takes care of the budget for next year that may need to be adjusted?
That is in the statement that of special fund activity that is currently being developed and is not part of this packet.
Okay, so the answer will be later. Okay, thank you.
All right, any additional questions?
So I do have one. When you were determining how much to give each branch for collections, is that based on the general population that branch might serve? Or is that money distributed equally among all the branches, or? How do you make that determination?
So we use a software program called Collection HQ that basically analyzes all of our branches. It's primarily based on circulation, but also on linear shelf space. So branches with more linear shelf space have more items. Branches with less, because you can only, it's a finite amount of space. And we know that around 25% of the collection is in circulation at any given time. So this, the Collection HQ helps us determine, where we purchase books, but we order all of our items centrally. So we have a collection services, they have selectors who decide, which books are gonna go to which branches, but they use those reports from Collection HQ. And they say it's very granular, you can tell which branches, what are the 10 most popular books at a particular branch? What are the most popular authors at a particular branch? It will tell them, you don't have enough books by this author. People are requesting these books here. And so it will tell our collection services department to order more books by that author or order more copies of that book. So it's like an algorithm that basically, helps inform their decision-making for purchasing books.
I didn't even know that existed.
That's really interesting. I requested a book, I was number 94 in the queue. I thought, would you buy more? So I hope they noticed that.
Holds ratio for our books. So for every 4 holds, we purchase an additional copy.
Okay,
And that ratio would change if measure W didn't pass.
yeah, well, let's not envision that future. But I'm interested in this question because it implies there is knowledge in your base of information that is branch specific. And you just answered with a linear shelf measurement. So if you're a small library like ours with a big circulation, linear shelf doesn't do it, but the Collection HQ is gonna take care of that discrepancy to make it equitable somehow.
I mean, your library can only hold a finite number of books. So your collection size, it will change over the year, but you're not going to be able to grow a 29,000 item library into a 50,000 item library. Because there's just, when those books come back, there's no place to put them.
Right.
So, like I said, we have 25% of the books are in circulation. So they take into account all of those things when they are making their purchasing decisions.
In addition, again, the folks in Sebastopol have access to the entire library system.
Exactly.
So if it's not in your shelf on that day,
Yeah.
they can request it from another branch, and we have delivery constantly every day. So, we try to get the books to the patron as fast as possible when they're available.
That's another
And
reason.
in addition to that, you can borrow books from other library systems
Yeah.
through Link Plus.
Turn them all into e-readers, then you
No.
don't have that problem.
No.
No, some people like physical
Some
books.
people like
paper.
Yeah.
And pencils. Isn't that funny? Uh-huh. Okay.
Oh, and on that point, though, there are also a finite number of licenses for ebooks.
Cause I'm 47 on one of my books.
Yeah, and those are really expensive too, so, we know it's popular, but we also have, a finite number of those licenses available.
However, just as a side note, the American Library Association, the Urban Library Council, and now the California Library Association is probably going to be talking to legislators to say publishers are really trying to rip libraries off by charging so much for ebooks. And so we may be asking voters to write to their legislators to talk about it.
And that's another way of saying the publishers are trying to rip you off.
That's right.
Yes.
I just saw something from Erica, a book you might buy online for $20, so we're gonna pay more than $100 for the digital version. And that digital version is gonna expire,
Right.
and we're gonna have to buy it again.
Again and again after that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious if there is a statistic on the number of patrons of that library you know, we all move around, who are waiting for hold? Like, do you have numbers?
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I'd be really curious, for instance, if my branch has an unusual amount of people who are, or, you know, how the library branches compare on the number of people waiting for holds.
We also look good compared to other libraries in the state, just to let you know.
So in relation to the ebook, because she mentioned that she's number 44 or whatever, so the process you do with the books, do you do that with ebooks too? So if there's like 44 people, then you're gonna order more ebooks?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
I don't
Right.
quite know what the holds ratio is for ebooks. It has had to go up from 4 to 6 just because it's so.
Oh.
That's a little ripoff.
It's wild. Yeah, it's wild.
Any additional questions or comments? Ray, you was gonna mention something on the back end when we was talking about the ratio with the books and
I was just gonna mention that in terms of, you know, how we support a community that has a small branch.
mhm,
You know, we've already done that by opening more hours.
mhm,
That's what the biblio boxes are for.
right.
If you can't get by the library when it's open, you can go there 24/7. And again, you know, the increased use of digital.
And so based on that, so is there a way that you track the usage of the biblio boxes?
Mhm.
Hmm,
They got
Yeah,
statistics.
they start slow at most branches,
mhm,
and then they, you know, it's kind of a punctuated. It's a stair step,
mhm.
and then there's a big bulge, and then it'll plateau for a while, then it'll take off again.
It's a learning curve.
Right.
I love.
They're great.
Any more questions? Okay. Moving on to items, agenda item 4.3, fiscal year 2024-2025, July monthly report.
So here I would like to share with you, this report was also shared with the finance committee on August 19th. There's not much activity because it only really shows, the month of June, but, again here, I guess my point here is, for example, the sales tax budget is $16.8 million, and that's what will be revised given, the recent, confirmation of last year's, sales tax revenues. But essentially, you know, we've, spent, in the month of July, $4.3 million. That can be $1 million of that is explained in benefits. We do pay upfront a lump sum in our unfunded accrued liability or the pension, and we do get a savings paying that upfront. But it is a mandatory liability. And so our burn rate is about $3 million a month. And that's what she's showing here. So with that, you know, that's my summary.
Okay, any questions?
I just have a request. There is a chart that has the David Charles Johnston request listed. That's specifically designated for the Sebastopol Library, so I think it would be helpful on the chart to indicate that, because for instance, there's the one called Roseland. People understand where that's going. I just think it's important that folks know that's not a special fund anybody can dip into.
That is the.
David Charles Johnston Endowment.
Yeah.
Let's see.
No.
Yeah,
74830.
There.
Put it in parentheses that it's.
Yeah, that's what I'm requesting. Yeah, thank you.
So I assume when I make a donation from the Friends of the Library in Roanoke Park, it's going under 74825 books and materials donation, or
No,
Or is it coming out?
Friends,
Yes.
all of Friends, Friends donations are under 74810.
Oh, okay, the top one, gifts and donations.
The books and materials, that hasn't changed over time. We need to clean that up. It's $15,000 and we're doing a deep dive in a lot of these to clean up some of these smaller balances.
Okay, I know that there was, how would I say this? The Friends had money that was, that were not mishandled, but allocated incorrectly at some point, and then they were held in reserve. How is that reflected anywhere in all of that? Because I know that's being drawn down now because we've spent ours for slab walls and another, pod.
Yeah, there's no specific Friends report here, but the total of all of that is cash balance of $1.2 million.
So that's in gifts and donations. It's in that same category if it were to be broken down. That's where that's where it lies.
Yes, each branch manager receives a monthly report on the Friends balances.
Okay.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? Okay. Moving on to agenda item 4.4. Update to modernization projects.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dave Tasheva. I'm the facilities manager for the library. And this is my first time attending this meeting. So thanks for inviting me. So right now, we have 7 major projects in the queue and funded. Right now, Petaluma is undergoing demolition. It was closed, as everyone knows.
Yeah, I'm curious what you're doing in there.
So they're removing the floors right now and the old circ desks and the old reference desk. So it's completely empty of furniture and shelving. And it looks really big. Looks really, really big without all that stuff in it. So, yeah, so that's exciting, and that's been the major delay in this plan of ours since we had city involvement. Anyway, so that one's headed out, and this next commission meeting will be approving the annex critical maintenance and ADA project across the way here at History and Genealogy. That's a $1.7 million project. Healdsburg will be approved, and that's a total project of 2.3. We've just moved out of that location. We'll be disassembling all the shelving next week and opening the mini branch next week. Cloverdale is in review, in design review, and at Cloverdale we're doing a patio update and ADA restroom upgrade.
Which we've been.
Yes. Yes, and so it's in the final stage of review for the plans. We are set to put that. Hopefully we get that on the December commission agenda for approval. Yes. Rincon Valley, we just recently signed a design contract with Siegel and Stern. We'll begin planning that project this November. We'll kick off the planning. There'll be about 9 to 12 months of planning before we get into submitting for bids and stuff like that. Windsor is getting its carpet replaced and some new furniture. It's the smallest project in the queue, but it's still as important as the rest of them, and that's happening in November also. And those are all the projects that we have, all the major projects that we have going right at this moment.
You feel like you're juggling balls?
Oh, yeah, Roner Park has a critical infrastructure project going that is grant funded partially and is being run by the city. So one of the library's scope in that is just providing them with the match for the grant that we said we would, and we write them a check and then they do the rest.
Will that involve any service interruption?
it should not involve too much service interruption. There's lighting controls, so.
And it won't be this fiscal year, so it'll be next fiscal year that the city does the project.
FY 26. Is there any questions?
I have one. Somebody else needs to ask questions. I'm
No,
getting
yeah, go
embarrassed.
ahead.
Help me out some more. How would a member of the public find out in an efficient way the projects in the queue now that you just summarized? for all of
Right.
us, and then the ones following,
The ones
Because-
following,
the ones that are coming up, yes.
ones that aren't funded yet. So
The
all,
ones that are planned and committed to, but perhaps not funded, does that make sense? Is that
yeah,
how
that's
you
all the
think
ones
it
that I just read off. There's lots of like plans that are only in the facilities master plan. Like we should relocate Sebastopol, for instance, but we haven't put any work into, planning that, how that would look, how that would be. That involves, massive stakeholders, right? So the city has to be involved.
Understood.
I'd like to jump in on that is that, first of all, in all of this, some of these projects were actually planned in last fiscal year.
Right.
And then, because, the facility, the building where we're in, the library only occupies it. And the library does not own the building. The building is owned by our JPA partner or the city or the county. And so therefore, we are really constrained by the city's ability to commit any resources to address any issues that are in our master's facility plan. And so therefore, we do our best and allocate our funding for internally, for the improvements internally, and inside the building. And we work very closely, but if the city or the county does not have the funds, then we cannot move forward with anything that has to do with the building itself. And that's something that we would love to work with this committee and the commission to, Dave, I know does this, is work with city staff to notify them is that, we're ready to do some work when the city partner can meet us with their end of, their obligations under the JPA agreement. And
So for example, like the Petaluma project, we are moving forward with the interior work that we committed to doing, the city's part. They are delayed. So we have been, this project has been delayed 3 years at least since I've been here. So we're moving forward with our piece and they're gonna do their piece when they, have money.
But also, we sometimes get state money, and a couple of years ago, as you recall, there was no state deficit. Now there's a state deficit. And so that has an impact, and even though libraries get a minuscule amount of money from the state, it's going to be even smaller, and so some of the projects that were funded or were about to be funded were then defunded. So the library staff is trying its best to work with the projected money, the real money, and where can we get the money? And so if funders haven't been found in some communities, the library can't fund it all. It has to be, the partners are responsible for the buildings.
So we had Northwest was given grant funds. The city of Santa Rosa was unable to come up with their part of the match, so their grant has been put on hold. So, all of our projects, though, the county, Grenville, they have their match, Roanoke Park has their match. We have our match for history and genealogy, so all of those projects have been funded by the state.
So in relation to what you said about the grant money, that the library have the grant money, and so I know some places are exhibiting some challenges. And so.
Very
And so, like, in relation to that grant, if we foresee that the other parties may not come up with that money, what's gonna happen to those grants?
Well, I mean, the reality is we put up half of the match for Northwest. The city has not identified the funding and it's like we can't do, they have to do their part.
Right.
I think,
Okay.
I think that it's also behooves the city to work with the grantor, in this case, the state library, to work something out. I mean, I think they have been, the state library has been responsive. So
When they can.
it does not hurt to advocate for some flexibility.
And voters have a voice, just to.
Right, and to answer your question.
Yeah.
Yes, you can find this information in the facilities master plan.
Got it. Yeah.
And we are going to publish what we call, this plan that I'm reading off of it. It hasn't been approved by the finance committee yet, but we're gonna publish this, and it's a supplement to the facilities master plan that goes over all our currently funded projects.
And we'll be looking at that at the next finance committee.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And
But
the
even that's-
facilities master plan is on the website.
Thank you, yeah, I
Yes.
saw you draw
Yes.
that up. But for Yvette's question, if the grant isn't being matched, but the regional system has done its part, like, how long do you wait and keep waiting and keep waiting and keep waiting? before
Or
you
does
start
the
forget
grant
these
money
people?
disappear?
It
Does
does, it does.
Does it get pulled back?
Yeah, it'll get pulled back
Yeah.
You get pulled back
Yeah.
to what fund?
back to the
Facility?
state.
Whoever's.
Back
Whoever gave it.
Okay,
So the state actually.
there's a timeline then.
Yeah, they
Yes.
actually pulled back the money and, because they took it for other things.
Mhm.
Okay.
Whether or not that project, maybe next year, if the state's in a better economic situation, maybe the project will get funded, but it still requires that
They
the
do a
state
back,
partner
yeah.
do their part much.
And providing all these incredible
Wow.
library services requires a partnership. And it
Mhm.
requires a sustaining partnership. The Northwest Library is going to continue to deteriorate. And when we do have to fix it, it's gonna cost more than if Santa Rosa had come up with a couple of $100,000 out of their $500 million budget.
Sorry, that makes me really grumpy.
Will Petaluma be finished on time then if they're having difficulty with the city getting their
So
part?
we're gonna
right?
have to close a second time.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And so, but the hope is that our project takes about 10 months and that they're ready in 10 months to start theirs, but that's very optimistic. I'll tell you, I'll say right now that they have until 2027, according to the grant rules, to finish that project, and that's as long as it'll take.
Complicated.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
a lot of balls in the air.
Right, so every project with every city involves this partnership, because a major project pulls a permit. Anytime you pull a permit, all your ADA deficiencies are exposed. And we take care of the insides.
Yeah,
And our partners are supposed to take care of the outsides, and the outsides are where most of the problems are, because we've already addressed most of the inside stuff.
And so the good news, though, is that we couldn't have done any of this without Measure Y,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
So, now we're seeing where all the painful spots are, and it will be wonderful when the system is completely renovated. Some roads are 70 years old, right?
Yeah.
But it happened in San Francisco. I mean, they just had no money. So if San Francisco can do it, we can do it in Sonoma.
That's right.
Well, on a positive note, we got some really good projects going on.
Yes, we
That's
do.
right.
Right, they're all on time.
Yes.
Right on time.
right.
Yes.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, any additional questions? Okay,
May I excuse myself if that's all?
no, you have to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Is it okay, Deborah?
She likes power.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you for inviting me to this meeting. Thank you.
Like that.
This needs to be shifted to someone.
How do you spell his last name? Is it
Oh.
TICHABA.
T-I-C-H-A-B-A? Boy, I wasn't even
I saw
close.
it and I don't know what else needs to say.
Second.
I went T-Y.
Right.
I'm no lefty.
Okay, so we're moving on to item 4.5. selection of volunteers for the preparation of Measure Y Oversight Committee. Are there any takers? I know I'm on it and I know Mike is on it
Jim is on, right?
and also Tim. And then we have any other,
And then I was going to do your
Over
editing.
your
I'll do
editing,
your
okay.
editing piece.
okay. So I think that's good because anything more, we can go in violation.
No, but I appreciate all of you stepping up and doing that very much.
Okay, thank you so much. But any questions or comments? in
Is there,
relation-
is there a timeline that you have then on when things need to be done and?
Yeah, we have the timeline, so we're gonna wait for the audit. And so everything should be done and going into production around November, December, and then ready for January's meeting for the commissioners. Report out to the commissioners. So we have been working on it, loosely working on it, so we do have some pieces and, you know, today was very helpful with that.
There was a lot of.
lot of
in your
information.
report that I thought, oh, that'll transfer right, very nicely
Right.
into, into, the Measure Y report.
Okay, and we, go ahead.
There's just one thing, and I should have said this at my report, we are down to commissioners, so, Tom Hauser in Sonoma Valley, his term expired, and then the young man's term in Cotati, his term expired, so we're looking for commissioners, and if anybody knows anybody who might want to be a commissioner there, we would be delighted, and then they will have to appoint, new people to this body as well, so,
Okay, thank you.
Sonoma Valley and where else?
Cotati.
Qatar.
And in Sonoma Valley, you actually sadly have to live in the city of Sonoma to be able to be appointed. In Cotati, it can be someone who
So
doesn't
then-
necessarily live in the city.
Barbara Hughes was the Snow Valley rep.
Correct.
So, okay.
Correct.
Why would those rules be different if you have two incorporated cities and?
It was the city.
operating differently?
It was the city's plan.
Decision, okay.
We're suggesting
They all have their
that they
process,
change it.
yeah.
Yes, we're suggesting that they change that, but
That's confusing when it's not consistent. You can
it
tell.
is confusing. We thought so. We were surprised.
Wait, so we're back to elections, so we're moving on to agenda item 4.6, elections of officers. I swear, I felt like we just did this. And it just feel like that.
Can I nominate the two of you
Oh, wait,
to
hold on one
continue?
I thought we did that last.
So, I just wanted to clarify that this is on the agenda as a discussion item. And the idea is that next time, you know, there could be a formal vote, people can start talking about it. But, and I think we can nominate.
Nominate.
But there's not gonna be a vote.
But not a vote.
The next.
Okay, discussion.
I thought we did that at the last meeting.
I feel like
Picked
we
y'all
did.
the same.
Yeah, that was in the last year, yeah. Okay,
Do you want me to go back and I can go back?
yeah, I felt like we did that in
Let me double check.
November. Was it November?
Maybe.
Well, when did we met?
April.
We met this
April.
April 25th, we met.
April
I
twenty-fifth.
believe I was following last year, but it's done, so.
Because I remember everybody's like, you just pick y'all two.
Yeah.
Good delay, then your term gets longer.
Right.
You stay until you're played. Strategy.
There.
Thank you. Grateful. Is that it?
No, we're just looking, we're just double checking the,
We always have.
Are you willing to remain chairman?
yeah.
Okay, good.
So last August,
Oh,
you had asked, Chair Minor asked if any committee members were interested in serving as chair of the committee for the next year. And that the committee will elect a chair and vice chair at the next meeting as an action by motion. So that's what we did last August. So I was.
So, wow, we are in, okay, yeah. it is. Okay, so we'll go back to our discussion. Is there any recommendations or
Somebody want to volunteer.
somebody want to volunteer?
I'm most happy with our current leadership.
So would you have to formalize.
Someone
it.
want to nominate that.
I
Yeah.
will formally nominate Yvette Meyer
That-
as our chair and Mike Neely as the vice chair for the coming year.
And
You
I
okay with that,
accept.
Mike?
And then we would, vote on it next, at the next meeting.
Boy, you're gonna be nervous about that.
Yeah.
It's an action item.
Okay,
at the next
Okay,
Perfect.
all right, well, that takes care of that. I accept then, Mike.
Yep.
So we'll have that on our next agenda for vote. Okay, moving, any discussion, comments or questions? Okay, moving on to action, moving on to agenda item 5. Agenda items for future committee meetings. Anybody have anything they would like to add?
I have one I would like to suggest. I don't know that this has been discussed previously, but not while I've been here. I thought it might be helpful to review the grand jury report as it writes about oversight committees. Because we're an oversight committee, a citizen oversight committee.
The most recent grand jury.
Yeah. Right.
Have you all seen it? We
No,
can certainly
no,
send-
not.
Okay, we can
What?
certainly send, yeah.
Thank you, because people keep saying, have you read that, sir? And I go, well, I better read it. And I figured, y'all better read it and discuss it together to see if there's something we bring internally to this group.
Oh, the next meeting, I'm looking at the date. Is that Thanksgiving week? No, it couldn't be.
It's
I think it's the
It's a week
Week
before.
before thing.
Right.
Before.
Okay, so is that the only item for agenda, a future agenda item? Okay. Moving on to agenda item 6, date and time of our next meeting. Currently, we have it set for November 21st, 2024 at 4 p.m. here at Santa Rosa Library. Okay.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions? Alrighty, moving on to agenda item 7, adjournment by acclamation. It is, oh, sorry, acclaim. 5-2.
Yeah.
All right, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
So traffic is thin.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's right.
Lisa. my
Now you're
husband
in
got
rush hour to get,
Go out the back
depending on where you
door.
guys
I
go.
was kind of hoping this would go longer so I could miss it.
No such luck.
Also, we'll need a long meeting anyway. I think you're- yeah, but-
Just one? Okay.
Thank
you, and I don't know if you need a
So based on the
further
questions that we're asking, you'll be able to get what you're looking for.
Jim,
Some of
do you
the-
need a permit?
No, I drive my little smart car, sneak into the spots nobody else can get into.
Mike, parking
Yeah,
ticket?
because- Oh, yeah.
One or two?
All right, we're on the same.
I drove 2 cars at the same.
No, so to get it, to make sure it covers the cost.
Oh, I did free parking up in the neighborhood. You can park on Second Street.
Yeah, I parked down at the.
I think that parking structures are.
It could be,
I don't know.
you know, but this is, you know, it's a.
My contact info.
Yes, I do.
See you before, because we
Yeah.
won't do anything then.
Yeah.
You need a hug? Or do I need a hug?
I'm looking at you.
Hey, Jen,